Very good morning. Welcome to Breakfast with Roger Johnson and Louise Minchin.
Good morning. Our headlines today. British troops from Kabul land back on UK soil as the government seeks international support to ensure the Taliban allow people to leave Afghanistan.
Rockets are fired towards Kabul airport where the US evacuation operation is drawing to a close. They're intercepted by an American anti-missile system.
President Biden declares a major disaster in Louisiana as powerful Hurricane Ida makes landfall, wiping out all power in New Orleans.
A new law to make school uniforms cheaper for families across England and Wales will not be in place in time for the start of this academic year.
Good morning. Paralympics GB win gold number 24 in Tokyo. Wheelchair racer Andrew Small claims a 100-metre title with teammate Harry Jenkins winning bronze.
Good morning. Today, once again, is going to be a fairly cloudy day. That cloud thick enough, especially in the east and the southeast for some drizzle. The brightest skies will be in parts of the west. I'll have all the details in about 25 minutes.
Good morning. It's Monday, the 30th of August. Our top story today. The UK will reach out to other countries today to exert pressure on the Taliban to respect human rights in Afghanistan and to honour its promise of granting safe passage for those with permission to leave.
The Foreign Secretary Dominic Raab will take part in a series of diplomatic meetings as the final UK troops return from Kabul. John Donnison has more details.
Back in Britain, some of the final RAF planes from Kabul arriving at Brize Norton Air Base in Oxfordshire last night, carrying UK troops and officials. Earlier flights had brought more Afghan refugees and the man who led the effort to bring them home, Ambassador Laurie Bristow. One plane even landed with an extra passenger on board. Baby girl Hubba was born during the flight. A new life heading for a new land. The evacuation marks the end of the UK's 20-year military involvement in Afghanistan. In recent weeks, the RAF scrambled to airlift 15,000 people, most of them Afghan refugees, before the Taliban deadline for foreign troops to withdraw by the end of August. But hundreds more remain stranded, both UK citizens and eligible refugees. The Taliban has said they will be allowed to leave. But with fear and tensions increasing, it remains to be seen if the Islamist group will honour that pledge. And potential danger is not limited to the Taliban. The local branch of the so-called Islamic State group killed more than 170 people in Thursday's bomb attack, including Mohammed Nazi, a taxi driver from Hampshire who travelled to Kabul to bring his family back. His wife Samina and their baby daughter also died.
Mohammed was one of the best men we have in a community, working hard to give the best life for his kids.
Yesterday, the US launched a drone strike against a car which it said was carrying more IS suicide bombers. And this morning, 5 rockets were fired towards Kabul International Airport. It's not known by whom, but they're reported to have been intercepted by a US anti-missile system. And with a humanitarian crisis looming, the UK is promising it will continue to support those left behind. Today, ministers will reach out to other nations, including Turkey and Qatar, who they hope may have more influence over the Taliban, Afghanistan's new rulers. John Donnison, BBC News.
Let's talk to our political correspondent Nick Eardley. He's in Westminster for us this morning. Nick, morning to you. The government pledging to support Afghan refugees when those troops finally all come back, but those left behind, and support those who are left behind, but Labour say not doing enough.
Yeah, morning Roger. I think the diplomatic push is going to be the thing we're going to hear about quite a lot over the next few days from a UK perspective now that from a UK perspective the military operation is over. So we heard yesterday the Taliban saying, as you heard in John's piece there, that safe passage would be available for UK citizens or those with appropriate documentation. I think you're going to hear quite a lot of pressure put on the Taliban from the international community to make sure that happens, to make sure it's done in a safe way. And a lot of that will focus on whether the new regime in Kabul is seen as internationally recognised or not. A lot of it has to do with money, and money that's been frozen by various international banks after the fall of the last government in Afghanistan. So you'll see all that diplomatic push. Lots of questions though about how effective that could be, how much leverage the UK and its international partners actually have to persuade the Taliban to make sure this happens. Labour, for example, calling for a much bigger presence for the UK in some of the neighbouring countries like Pakistan to make sure that anyone who is trying to flee Afghanistan and gets to those other countries can be properly processed. But even though the military operation is over, there's still a complicated few weeks ahead, and a lot of it will be about how you set up the infrastructure to get people who want to leave Afghanistan, to give them a way of getting out.
Nick, thank you. Nick Eardley there.
President Biden has declared a major disaster as Hurricane Ida continues to batter the US state of Louisiana, bringing catastrophic storm surges, flash flooding and 150-mile-an-hour winds.
Federal aid is now available to supplement recovery efforts after more than 1 million people have lost power and one person's been killed. Ida has now weakened to a Category 1, but still continues to cause widespread damage. Nada Tawfik sent this report from New Orleans.
This is the destructive power of Ida.
Oh my God! Yo!
Easily lifting the roof clear off this hospital in cut-off Louisiana. These coastal areas have been the hardest hit so far. Besides ferocious winds, there have been tidal surges as high as 16 feet and flash flooding. This fire station in Delacroix, Louisiana, posted footage before and after the storm as water rushed in. Officials warn some of the most affected parts may be uninhabitable for weeks. In comparison, much of New Orleans is protected by the levees and floodwalls of a newly built hurricane defense system. That is being put to the test now. In the iconic French Quarter, debris such as this roof and fallen tree branches litter the streets. And at nightfall, power went out across the entire city. In Washington, President Biden received a briefing on Ida at the Federal Emergency Management Agency, or FEMA. He made an appeal to people in the region.
I want to emphasize again, this is going to be a devastating hurricane, a life-threatening storm. So please, all you folks in Mississippi and in Louisiana, Mississippi, and God knows, maybe even further east, take precautions. Listen, take it seriously, really very seriously.
FEMA is sending 2,000 emergency workers to assist local authorities. For now, though, residents are on their own for the duration of the storm.
Nada Tawfik, BBC News, New Orleans.
An estimated 8 million people in England can't get specialist mental health support because they're not considered sick enough to qualify, according to new figures from NHS providers. The Department of Health says it's continued to provide support, including digital and face-to-face appointments throughout the pandemic. But charities say more people than ever struggled with their mental health during lockdown.
Scotland's First Minister Nicola Sturgeon is self-isolating after being identified as a close contact of someone with COVID-19. She said last night that in line with current guidelines, she would remain in isolation pending the outcome of a PCR test. Scotland's seen a record 7,000 new coronavirus cases in the latest 24 hours.
A UN watchdog says North Korea appears to have restarted a nuclear reactor after a gap of almost 3 years. The assessments are based on satellite images because inspectors haven't been allowed into the country since 2009. The facility involved is widely believed to produce weapons-grade plutonium and has been discharging cooling water since July, suggesting it's operational.
See the headlines as they happen and watch BBC News live in the app and get the full story with bbc.co.uk/news. Follow the story for all the latest with BBC News.